All right, back at it. So last week I wrote up something about how the president's tax policy is pretty much going to end small family-owned farms and ranches and really destroy their ability to be passed on to the next generation. And so there's been quite a bit. It's gotten quite a few views and a lot of reaction to it. So I just wanted to go back over it here and answer some of the questions. So going into it, I really wanted to stay out of all the political BS and just focus on. I just wanted to write it the way I wish people would write about politics, meaning this is the policy, this is how it impacts people. And I think a lot of that's lost now. And I had to, going into it, researching this, I had to kind of sift through a lot of that. And I came across an article by a tax attorney out of California named Robert Wood. And he took the president's tax policy, showed how it would affect a small business that's being handed down to the next generation. And so what I did is I just took that and showed that how that would affect a farm that's being handed down to the next generation. And so it's really going to screw farmers and ranchers, but it's also going to hurt pretty much anybody who's created a lot of value through their life, and they want to pass that on to the next generation. They're just going to get hit with a major tax, and it's a combination of things, but the main thing is the elimination of the stepped up basis. And what the stepped up basis is, and has been used for generations, is it takes your parents' property at the time that they purchased it or inherited it, and it steps up that value to today's current value. So for my example, I just used a farm, and I tried to simplify it as much as I could to make it easy to understand. There's a ton of factors that go into all of agriculture, and this will definitely hurt farms, ranches, pretty much anyone who needs a lot of land to create a living. That's who's going to be hurt the worst. And so the farm for me was the easiest. They're more uniform, and I just kind of simplified it down as much to a 1,000-acre farm that someone's making a living on. And there are farms smaller, and there's definitely farms bigger than that, but I felt like that was just the easiest way to do it. So in this part of the country, in southwest Iowa, farm prices in the early 90s, you could have bought a 1,000-acre farm for around $900,000, around $900 an acre. So if you compare that to today's value, that same 1,000 acres would be valued at around $8 million. And that's where this tax policy really puts the screws to farmers and ranchers, is because land prices over the years have went just skyrocketed, whereas the ability to make a living on that land, or the amount of money you're actually making off that land, hasn't increased near as much. And so if you eliminate that stepped up basis on that 1,000 acres for a farm, that's a price difference of $7.1 million. And farmers now, their assets can be worth millions of dollars, but their goal in life is not to be multimillionaires. Their goal in life is the same as grandpas and grandpas before that, is they want to be able to pass that farm on to the next generation, to give their kids the opportunity to live the same lifestyle they lived, which is what they love doing, and that's farming and ranching. And so if on my example, if you have your tax bill, if $7.1 million is going to be taxed, according to Robert Wood, tax attorney, you're going to get hit. These are his words: no amount of inheritance tax exemption is going to help you. And this is going to be an income tax. So you're going to be in the highest tax bracket. You're going to be at 39.6% of $7.1 million, and you'd have a $2.8 some odd million tax bill at the time of death. And that's really not sustainable for farming, especially for these smaller operations, to have a multi-million-dollar bill that they have to pay off. So what would end up happening, if you have a section of land and you're able to make a living off of that land for you and your son or your hired hands, you would have to sell off a portion of that land to pay that tax bill. And now your ability to make that same living and that same amount of money has been decreased by however much you would have to sell off to pay it. And one of the definite, I guess the other part of the tax policy that's going to make this, you can't get around it, is the wording was a transfer of unrealized assets will be taxed, meaning whether you sell it or whether you keep it, you're going to be taxed no matter what. And that's definitely a big change. So for, and one of the questions a lot of people, or a few people had, was, of course, any banker would give you a loan on 40% of your assets, your total assets. And so I suppose that's true, but as far as, you're going to have that loan payment also, which is going to reduce your amount of income. And then also, most people who are inheriting land are in their 50s or 60s. And so you're taking out a multi-million-dollar loan to pay off your tax bill. You're 60 years old. Your kid is going to inherit that. You're not going to be able to pay it off before you die. So you're also passing on a loan payment, as well as your kid's going to get the appreciation, a tax on the appreciation of value between the time when you inherit it and you die. So it's really unsustainable. Even if you get a loan and you're able to pass it on, get it to the next generation, they're just going to have more of a burden and a harder time making it. And I guess the other main question was on the tax exemption, which, he's the tax attorney, and that's what he wrote, is no amount of tax exemption will help you. And part of the proposal is reducing the tax exemption. Right now it's at like $12 million. Inheritance tax exemption is at $12 million. Be reduced to $3.5 million. But even no matter what, none of it's going to help you. So you'd have to pay that total bill. And so really the goal with everything is, and to get all this out here, is the media, as far as covering this, a lot of people had never heard about it, and that's why this article has gotten so much of a reaction. And there's been other videos, and I've done a couple interviews. And so the media is just absolutely sucks when it comes to letting people know what's going on with political policy. They're really good at letting people know what's going on Twitter, and who's mad at who, and who said what about who, and all that. But as far as really keeping people informed, it's just not happening. And that leads into kind of, if you go back a couple months with the COVID relief package, senators were given a 5,000-page document or bill to vote on, and they were given 1 or 2 days to vote on it, and none of them had seen any of it. I don't know how long it takes to write up 5,000 pages, but that was definitely in the works, and nobody knew about it. And so the goal here is just to kind of get people talking about it, looking at these actual proposals instead of the he said, she said, typical DC politics stuff. Because if you go back to Obamacare, the famous quote was, we have to vote on the bill, we have to pass the bill in order to find out what's in it. And I feel like that's just, there's a lot of talk about unity right now, and I feel like one thing that people should be, that would definitely unify people, and both parties can agree on, is that we need to know what's in these bills and what's being passed and made into law before we actually vote on it, or it gets voted on. And so the goal here is just to get that out there, get this get people sharing and keep people sharing it, and it's really taken off, and so and generate a lot of discussion. So hopefully that continues, and we can get this thing straightened out.